Like right behind the next hill or deep inside a forest that's too thick to walk through, there's a whole different reality waiting for you. It's got silver mountains, trees that basically glow in the dark, and secrets that haven't been told in centuries. Well, you've just found your way into that world. Welcome back to Fairy Moss Babies, where we don't just tell stories, we give you a front row seat to the impossible. Today, we're diving into a legend that's been whispered about for generations, and honestly, the vibes are absolutely wild. It's a tale about three brothers, a kingdom on the line, and a cat that's definitely not your average house pet. Once upon a time, in a kingdom that looked like it was pulled straight from a high-budget fantasy movie, there lived a king who had three sons. These guys were all impressive, but in totally different ways. The oldest was the serious type, think straight-A student, totally by the book, always thinking 5 steps ahead. The middle son was the life of the party, always looking for a good time and ready to please anyone who'd give him a high five. Then there was the youngest. He was the low-key one. He didn't try to be the loudest in the room, but he had this quiet kind of grace and main character energy that made people trust him without him even saying a word. But here's the problem: the king was getting older. He started feeling a bit sus about his sons, worrying they were trying to take over his throne before he was ready to step down. Even though his body was slowing down, his mind was still sharp as a diamond, and he wasn't about to give up his power just yet. So he decided to distract them with a challenge that sounded more like a wild goose chase. Before we see how this epic quest starts, do me a huge favor. If you're ready for some serious magic, hit that like button and subscribe to Fairy Moss Babies. It really helps us keep these stories coming your way. The king called his sons together and said, "Listen, I love you all, but I can't just pick an heir based on who's the oldest or who's the funniest. I need a sign from the universe. So here's the mission: go out into the world and bring me the smallest, most perfect little dog you can find. Whoever brings the best one gets the crown. No pressure, right?" The brothers bowed and headed out that very afternoon. The oldest went east with a whole squad of guards, acting like he was on a military operation. The middle one went west with a bunch of merchants, thinking he could just buy his way to victory. But the youngest, he just rode off alone. He didn't have a map or a plan, just his instinct and a feeling that fate had something special waiting for him. And man, did fate deliver. For days, the youngest prince traveled through places that looked like they belonged on a postcard. Meadows thick with wildflowers and forests, where the sunlight filtered through the leaves like gold dust. But no matter where he looked, every dog he found was just a dog, nothing special, nothing royal. Then one evening the sky turned a crazy shade of stormy purple. It wasn't just a rainstorm, it was a total atmospheric event. Thunder was cracking like the sky was breaking apart, and the rain was coming down in sheets. The prince was soaked to the bone, and his horse was starting to freak out. Just when he thought he was going to have to spend the night shivering under a tree, he saw a flicker of light through the pines. He pushed through the brush and stumbled upon a castle that looked like it was built out of pure moonlight. It was glowing, tall, and shimmering, with golden torches lighting up balconies that looked too delicate to be real. He knocked on the gate and it just swung open all by itself, which is usually a red flag, but he was too cold to care. He stepped inside and waited for a guard to yell at him, but instead, he was greeted by dozens of cats. And these weren't regular cats that just stare at you and judge your life choices. They were walking upright, bowing to him with actual courtesy, and wearing velvet collars covered in real gems. One striped cat, acting like the world's most dignified butler, gestured for him to follow. The prince felt like he was in a dream, but he followed anyway. He was led through hallways decorated with massive tapestries and portraits of, you guessed it, crowned cats. Finally, he was ushered into this magnificent chamber where, sitting on a throne of carved ivory, was a small white cat. She was luminous, elegant, and had eyes that looked like they knew everything you've ever thought. She welcomed him in a voice that was soft and musical, telling him he was safe and that he should eat and rest. The feast that followed was next level. There were cats playing tiny violins, cats carrying silver trays, and dishes that tasted better than anything he'd ever eaten at the palace. The white cat sat at the head of the table, talking to him with so much wit and charm that he totally forgot she was, well, a cat. Over the next few days, then weeks, then months, the prince just stayed. He was living his best life. There were hunting parties, dances, and long nights spent talking with the white cat about everything from philosophy to the stars. She was brilliant, and he found himself looking forward to every moment with her. But eventually, the reality check hit. He realized he'd been vibing in this enchanted castle for a whole year, and he still hadn't found a dog for his father. He told the white cat he had to leave, and she just smiled. She told him not to worry and handed him a literal walnut. She told him not to open it until he was standing in front of the king. He headed home feeling a bit weird about showing up to a royal succession meeting with a piece of fruit, but he trusted her. When he arrived, his brothers were already there, showing off these rare, expensive dogs they'd found. The king looked at the youngest and said, "So what do you have?" The prince cracked open the walnut, and everyone in the room gasped. Inside was a dog so tiny and so perfect it looked like it was made of light. It was smaller than a grape but moved with more grace than a champion stallion. The king was stunned, but he wasn't ready to let go of his crown yet. He moved the goalposts and said, "Okay, that was impressive, but now I want a piece of cloth so fine it can pass through the eye of a needle." The brothers were annoyed, but the youngest prince didn't even hesitate. He went straight back to the white cat's castle. Coming back felt like coming home. The white cat welcomed him with open arms, and they spent another year together, deeper in conversation and friendship than before. When the time came to leave again, she gave him a small box and told him the same thing: "Don't open it yet." Back at the palace, the brothers brought rolls of silk that were beautiful, but way too thick for a needle. Then the youngest opened his box and pulled out a piece of cloth that looked like it was spun from mist. It was so light it practically floated, and when the king pulled it through the needle, it slid through like water. The king was running out of excuses, but he tried one last time. He said, "Bring me the most beautiful bride in the world, and then you'll definitely be the heir." The prince felt a mix of hope and dread. Who could be more captivating or more intelligent than the white cat? He rushed back to her, and when she saw him, her sapphire eyes were glowing with a bit of sadness. She told him that she could be what he needed, but there was a catch, a big one. She told him he had to take his sword and cut off her head and tail. The prince was horrified. He told her there was no way he could ever hurt her, but she looked him in the eye and said he had to trust her. It was the only way to break the spell. With tears in his eyes and a shaking hand, he did what she asked. As soon as he did, there was a massive burst of golden light that filled the whole castle. When the light faded, the cat was gone. Standing there was a young woman so radiant and beautiful that the prince couldn't even find his voice. She explained that she was a princess who had been cursed by some spiteful fairies when she was just a baby. Her whole kingdom had been turned into cats along with her, and the only way to break the enchantment was to find someone who would love her for who she was, even as a cat. And who would be brave enough to finish the spell? The prince was that person. He loved her heart and her mind before he ever saw her face. The entire castle transformed back to normal, and they traveled back to the king's palace together. When they arrived, the king couldn't deny her beauty or her royal bearing. He named the youngest prince his heir right then and there. They were married in a celebration that lasted for days, and eventually they ruled over both their kingdoms with so much wisdom and kindness that they became legends. It just goes to show that loyalty and patience can break even the darkest spells. Now, I want to hear from you guys. What would you do if you stumbled upon a castle full of talking cats? Would you stay for the year, or would you be too creeped out? Also, if you've ever felt like you were waiting for your own walnut moment, a small thing that turns into something huge, let me know in the comments. Don't forget to share this story with someone who needs a little magic today. You've been watching Fairy Moss Babies, and honestly, having you here is the best part of these stories. Until next time, stay curious and keep looking for the magic in the ordinary.